Good morning. I'm Emily Ikeda in for Joe and Savannah. We begin this Tuesday morning with the release of a trove of documents related to convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. The Republican-led House Oversight Committee released all of the documents it received from Epstein's estate. This just hours after Democrats on the committee posted this lewd note President Trump is alleged to have sent to Epstein as part of a book compiled for Epstein's 50th birthday more than 2 decades ago. The Wall Street Journal was the first to report the existence of the card back in July, though the president has denied having anything to do with the card and has sued the Journal, its publisher, and 2 reporters. NBC News has not independently verified the Wall Street Journal's reporting. In response to the so-called birthday book, White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt says the president did not draw the picture and did not sign it. We'll have more reaction from the White House in a moment when we check in with NBC's Monica Alba. But let's begin with NBC News Capitol Hill correspondent Melanie Zanona with the latest. Mel, good morning. So the so-called birthday book was the most revealing of records made public by the House Oversight Committee, which had subpoenaed Jeffrey Epstein's estate last month. So walk us through what's in these documents and what we're learning now.
Yeah, good morning. It was a really big development for this congressional investigation into the Epstein case. In addition to the birthday book, the House Oversight Committee says it received a trove of documents from the Epstein estate, including the last will and testament from Epstein before he died by suicide in jail in 2019, the non-prosecution agreement involving Epstein and the attorney's office in the Southern District of Florida, entries from Epstein's contact book, his address book, and finally, information about his known bank accounts. What was not included, though, in this trove of documents was any so-called client list. That is something that an attorney for the estate says they are not aware that exists, and so they didn't turn that over, but they are prepared to turn over additional documents on a rolling basis. So this could really just be the first batch. And they've also offered the opportunity for staff members, both Republican and Democrat on the committee, to come to New York later this week to view all of these documents in their original unredacted form. So again, this is a really big development for the committee. The 2 pieces being probably the most revelatory, at least from a political perspective, are those 2 entries that you mentioned in that birthday book that was compiled by Ghislaine Maxwell that were purportedly written by Trump. Now, the White House has denied that that's actually Trump's signature and that he had anything to do with it. But Democrats, of course, really seizing on this to question the relationship between Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein.
So I want to get into some of the reaction to all of this. House Oversight Committee Chairman, Republican Congressman James Comer says Democrats were, quote, cherry-picking documents and politicizing information received from the Epstein estate. What's been some of the response from fellow Republicans on the Hill, Mel?
Well, I would say the responses have fallen into 2 camps from Republicans. Either A, Republicans said they have not seen it. This was yesterday when we were chasing people in the hallways asking them. Or B, they really mimicked the White House line, which is that this is not Trump's signature. This is forged. This is all fake news. There was at least one Republican, though. His name is Don Bacon. He's a moderate. He's retiring. He at least admitted to me that it's probably unlikely that someone forged Trump's signature, but he wouldn't even fully go there to say that this is forged. I want you to take a listen to some of the other reactions we heard yesterday.
Trump's letter to Epstein, what's your reaction to that?
I think it's a distraction.
What do you mean?
I mean, it doesn't prove anything. Having a birthday card from Trump doesn't help the survivors and the victims. It doesn't name an additional new person who could be indicted. I think it's just a distraction.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I mean, anybody can do a signature. We've seen the auto pen's been used quite a bit with the Biden administration. So I've never known Trump to be much of an artist either. So I'd kind of draw that into question.
And that first Republican that we heard from, that was Thomas Massie. He's actually leading a bipartisan effort to force a floor vote releasing all of the Epstein files. He is still pushing ahead with that. They need a few more signatures, though, in order to succeed with that effort.
And let's look to last week, because just last week on the steps of the Capitol, Epstein's accusers said there were some people who were close to him who should have known what was going on years ago. Where does this case and the congressional investigation go from here?
So congressional investigators said they really want to follow the money trail. They've already issued a subpoena for some bank records, suspicious activity reports. They said they got some new names and new ideas after their investigation over the last week, hearing from witnesses behind closed doors. And they're going to continue to haul in people for depositions, including Alex Acosta. He was in charge of that non-prosecution agreement that I mentioned. He was also Trump's former labor secretary. So they are going to continue to conduct this investigation behind closed doors, even as Republicans are digging up some potentially embarrassing and harmful information for the president.
Mel, a lot to watch for. Thanks so much. Let's go to NBC News White House correspondent Monica Alba now for more on the reaction from the Trump administration. Monica, the White House has been trying to move past the Epstein story for months. They're essentially saying this alleged Trump birthday letter isn't real. So what's in their explanation here?
Yeah, Emily, this is something that they have continued to deny. Initially, they said the letter was non-existent. They said that this was something that they weren't even presented with when the Wall Street Journal published a story earlier this summer. And that is when you had first Karoline Leavitt, the White House press secretary, issuing that denial. And she's issuing a new denial in regard to this, specifically saying that this proves, in her words, in the White House's argument, that the birthday card story is false. She says it's very clear, again, this is the White House argument, that the president did not draw this picture and that he did not sign it. And the White House even released yesterday, Emily, some of the signatures that they say are the current signature of Donald Trump that do not look like the one that is in this image. But when you look at some of the images that have been released of correspondence that Donald Trump signed in the last 20 plus years, there are signatures that appear to be similar to what you see there. Again, that is seemingly his signature, and that is what is being alleged here, and that is what is being reported. But you had Vice President Vance, for his own part, trying to really paint this, in his words, as political, saying that the Democrats, quote, don't care about Jeffrey Epstein, that they are simply focused on this as a distraction. So that has been the argument from the White House that we have heard for some time, that they repeated yesterday. Again, the vice president saying that they believe that the only thing that the Democrats care about is, again, trying to focus on something, in the words of the White House, that paints Donald Trump in a negative picture. But this has been something the White House has had to answer questions for, and they will only have to answer more questions for it when Karoline Leavitt has a press briefing today in the afternoon. Emily.
Take us inside the White House on this. Is there a sense within the White House that this is a problem that won't go away? Are they contemplating changing their strategy at all on this?
Well, for as long as this has been happening, the real crux of this issue has been that some of the calls for more information have come from Republicans, have come from allies, have come from supporters in the president's own MAGA base. So in order to try to answer that, they have said that they would like to have transparency, that they have pushed for more records to be released. But of course, that does beg more questions and for them to have to spend more time on this. But Karoline Leavitt said that the White House, the president in particular, is going to continue to pursue litigation on this. Remember, they sued the Wall Street Journal for defamation. And remember that they had said initially, again, that this is something that simply did not exist, that they didn't believe. The president, for his own part, Emily, had said on the White House South Lawn more recently, maybe somebody wrote this and forged his signature. So he did introduce that kind of potential scenario into the situation. But they will likely be in a defensive posture today, saying, again, they will continue to pursue that legal action against this.
Monica, let's switch gears here for a moment. The president took part in an event at the Museum of the Bible in Washington yesterday to address what he's calling grave threats to religious liberty in schools. How is the administration planning to get involved in this, and is it raising any questions about the separation of church and state?
It is overall, and that is something that normally is questioned when you have something like this being discussed. President Trump announced some new guidance, he said, from the Department of Education that would be forthcoming. It's unclear exactly what it will entail and how it will be implemented, but this is part of the president's long-held belief and stance that he wants to work toward what he calls anti-Christian bias in schools and in the education department overall. So he is saying he's going to try to introduce things to protect prayer, which already is protected in schools, but to go beyond that. And again, we're waiting on the details of exactly how that will work. Emily.
Monica Alba breaking it all down for us. Thanks so much, Monica. Meanwhile, the Trump administration has been handed a victory by the Supreme Court, blocking a federal judge's ruling that restricted federal officers' ability to conduct immigration stops in Los Angeles. As NBC News senior White House correspondent Gabe Gutierrez explains, this comes as ICE operations are beginning to ramp up in Chicago.
The Trump administration stepping up its crackdown on illegal immigration in Chicago. Seen here arresting a man from Mexico, ICE says, was wanted for aggravated sexual assault of a child.
You try and reason with people like in Chicago with the governor and the mayor. You try and reason with them, and it's like you're talking to a wall.
Over the weekend, President Trump posting an AI-generated image of himself with the phrase, "Shipocalypse now." The caption, "I love the smell of deportations in the morning." The president saying he is still considering sending the National Guard there to reduce crime.
We'd love to go into Chicago and straighten it out. We're bringing back law and order to our country.
Over the last 2 weekends, there have been 14 homicides and at least 76 people shot in Chicago, with one alderman telling us National Guard troops would free up police.
I absolutely support the Trump administration bringing in more federal resources. Our city needs as much help as we could possibly get.
But Chicago's Democratic mayor is increasingly pushing back, writing the city just experienced record low homicide numbers, making this the safest summer since the 1960s.
Our communities remain united more than ever against the administration's attempt to unleash the military, National Guard, and rogue ICE agents on our city and state.
In a legal victory for the president, a conservative Supreme Court majority loosened restrictions on ICE operations in L.A. But in her dissent, liberal Justice Sonia Sotomayor writing, "We should not have to live in a country where the government can seize anyone who looks Latino, speaks Spanish, and appears to work a low-wage job." The White House insisting it does not target people based on race.
It's a multitude of factors to establish reasonable suspicion. But if an illegal alien has an MS-13 tattoo on his head, that's certainly going to be one of the factors that we consider.
Meanwhile, our NBC News poll shows the president's approval rating at just 43%. 57% disapprove. Gabe Gutierrez, NBC News, the White House.
Gabe, thanks so much. So for more on that decision, let's bring in NBC News senior Supreme Court reporter Lawrence Hurley and NBC News legal analyst Misty Maris to break it all down. Good morning to you both. Lawrence, let's start with you. This was a 6-3 decision split along strictly ideological lines, and it was brief. The ruling did not offer any explanation for how the court reached its decision. However, Justice Brett Kavanaugh issued a separate opinion that appeared to throw doubt on any constitutional violation. So what are the takeaways from this decision? Walk us through it, and how is the Trump administration reacting?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing to recall about this is that this is just another example of the Supreme Court blocking a ruling by a federal judge in this kind of emergency context where the Trump administration immediately appeals up to the Supreme Court and says, this is an emergency. How dare this judge block what ICE is doing in Los Angeles in this case? And the Supreme Court majority, which has 6 conservatives, including 3 Trump appointees, basically ruled in favor of the administration. So that's one thing to consider. The second thing is that the court here is basically allowing, as Justice Sotomayor referenced in her dissent, a kind of a form of racial profiling of people in the Los Angeles area, targeted basically because of where they work, whether they speak English, where they're mingling. As Sotomayor said, she thinks, this is going to lead to a lot of people who are American citizens or permanent residents, as there's been evidence in this case that there is, these people being picked up and detained. So, and of course, the Trump administration is seeing this as a major victory. The Attorney General, Pam Bondi, said so, and she's saying this now allows ICE to go about its operations in the Los Angeles area without being micromanaged by the courts.
So let's bring Misty into this conversation. Lawrence, as you heard, referenced Justice Sotomayor's strong dissent, which said in part that she would not, quote, stand idly by while our constitutional freedoms are lost. Were you surprised by this decision, and how could this impact ICE raids, ICE operations across the country?
Well, certainly the practical effect is that this decision is going to be used to conduct these similar types of raids using the same standards across the country, even though the decision isn't really clear about the impact on the national footprint because there was no written rationale. There is no decision. However, the Trump administration is going to use this to move forward, not just in Los Angeles, but with other places, because keep in mind, this is a for now. This decision is not final. The cases are still going to work their way through the courts. And Justice Sotomayor, her decision and her dissent was really reflective of the plaintiff's arguments that allowing these factors to be taken into account, like race, accents, speaking Spanish, location, that is basically violating the fundamental principles of the Fourth Amendment when it comes to reasonable suspicion, which in the criminal law context would preclude taking those factors into consideration. So this is a very novel issue that's going to be before the court on those Fourth Amendment principles and still needs that finality. So I imagine the Trump administration will take advantage of this time period at this point.
So let's talk about a separate ruling from yesterday where the Supreme Court allowed President Trump to fire, for now, a member of the Federal Trade Commission, despite what's typically protected by federal protections for these independent agencies. So what are you making of this, and how does former court decisions come into play here?
So there's an FTC law. It's actually on point, and he's done this with other independent agencies as well. We're looking to terminate civil service employees. But with the FTC, the requirement is that a termination by the president can only be for cause. And here he's looking to remove this particular commissioner without cause, which normally would require a showing of malfeasance or negligence. So now it is really a battle of the limits of executive power. There's a Supreme Court decision called Humphrey's Executor. It's from 1935, and that is what upheld the FTC law and this requirement. It's going against what the president and his administration is arguing. Their Second Amendment, Article 2 of the Constitution, Article 2 of the Constitution, their power to run the executive branch. And the argument is that over the past, decades, that the FTC has actually taken on more of an executive type role, so the president should have control. Another issue for the Supreme Court to have finality on that one as well.
Yeah, we know this is part of a broader conversation looking at other independent agencies as well. Lawrence, before you go, since President Trump began his second term, the administration has won 18 of its 25 appeals made to the Supreme Court emergency docket. Put that number into perspective for us. Is that unusual?
Well, the short answer is yes, because it's completely unprecedented to have this number of cases coming up to the court so quickly on an emergency basis. Just as an comparison, the Biden administration had 19 requests that it made to the Supreme Court on an emergency basis in 4 years. So the Trump administration has already surpassed that. And before that, the Obama administration, the Bush administration just had a tiny number of these cases coming up to the court. This has really accelerated, and it's kind of been turbocharged by the Trump administration, where almost any ruling from a district court judge that they don't like, they consider that to be an emergency. And when they say it's an emergency, it seems like the Supreme Court acts like it's an emergency and generally rules in their favor.
Misty and Lawrence, thanks so much for weighing in on this conversation. President Trump is facing a major legal loss this morning after a federal appeals court upheld the $83 million judgment against him in the E. Jean Carroll defamation case. His legal team argued that Mr. Trump was protected by presidential immunity. A panel of judges rejected that argument. Back in January of 2024, the president was found liable of defaming the writer's reputation repeatedly during his first term in office and the years that followed, including during the trial. A representative for Trump did not immediately respond to NBC News' request for comment. In a statement, Carroll's attorney said that they look forward to the end of this legal process so justice can finally be done. The president was also found liable in a separate civil suit in May 2023 for sexually abusing Carroll and defaming her. He denied all wrongdoing and challenged that decision. An appeals court affirmed that $5 million verdict last year. Now Trump is appealing to the Supreme Court. This morning, there's growing confusion over who has access to the latest COVID shots and who's going to pay for it. Some say they want the COVID vaccine but are struggling to get it. NBC News correspondent Steve Patterson spoke to one woman on Medicare who said she had to pay $200 for what she expected to be free.
74-year-old Allison Engel is diligent about keeping up with her COVID vaccinations. Now she's frustrated.
It is just a series of obstacles being put in front of me and other people to try to get the new COVID vaccine.
Engel has Medicare, and when she went to get a COVID shot a few weeks ago, she expected it to be free, but instead...
What exactly did they say to you when they handed you this?
They said it wasn't approved by Medicare.
So this is the pharmacy where Allison received that vaccine after paying out of pocket, a place that would normally allow anyone to get the shot. Now the rules for eligibility are strict, blocking anyone below 65 or without an underlying medical condition. But even then, it's a confusing patchwork. At a heated Senate hearing last week, Senator Elizabeth Warren grilled HHS Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. over access.
I'm not taking them away from people, Senator.
It takes it away if you can't get it from your pharmacist.
Adding to the confusion, a key CDC panel hasn't signed off on the new vaccine yet. Until they do, CVS says people in 10 states will need prescriptions to get the shot. As for Medicare patients, CVS says some stores are updating their systems and may not be set up yet for the new vaccine.
The more barriers we throw up, the more confusion we introduce in the system, there are going to be more people who are going to end up not getting the vaccine, and then they're going to be at continued risk.
Allison says she hopes Medicare will eventually reimburse her, but she isn't confident.
It really makes me furious because I believe that the decision for Medicare not to immediately reimburse for this is determined by politics, not medicine.
Steve Patterson, NBC News, Pasadena, California.
In California this morning, firefighters are struggling in a long and challenging battle to contain wildfires across the state. Currently, the largest is the Gifford Fire, which has already burned through more than 130,000 acres north of Los Angeles. East of Fresno, the giant sequoia trees that are unique to the area are in extreme danger yet again. The Garnet Fire has been burning in the Sierra National Forest for 2 weeks at this point. As of this morning, that fire has torched nearly 55,000 acres and is only 14% contained. Giant sequoias are the world's largest trees and can live for thousands of years. Since 2020, wildfires have destroyed about a fifth of all of them. Evacuation orders are still in place for tens of thousands of people in the area. And Florida has had a wet start to the week with more heavy rains expected today. Let's get a closer look with your Morning News Now weather. Meteorologist Angie Lassman joins us with more. Angie, say it isn't so. I see all the rain on the map.
Yes, unfortunately, Emily, we need the umbrella if we live in Florida. Sunshine State not living up to its name over the next couple of days. We've got already an active morning. Now, the good news is for most of you on the West Coast, early morning hours, we're seeing most of the activity sitting offshore. But notice East Coast, we're still seeing some of these kind of thunderstorms rolling on in. We've got plenty of heavy showers happening as well. And that's kind of going to set the stage for what we deal with through the rest of the day. So notice this cold front that's kind of slicing through the peninsula. This is going to leave us with the unsettled pattern for today and for tomorrow. Now, today, severe risk is low, but unfortunately, we have that potential to see some really heavy or some really high rainfall rates. And of course, that heavy rain leading us to some localized flooding. So we'll see that happening through the day today. Then that front becomes stationary. So that means that as we get into tomorrow, more of those showers, those thunderstorms will be in the picture. And we could see some gusty winds associated with that as well. I'd say from Daytona to Miami is where we'll see the heaviest of the rain. And you can see as we get through at least Thursday, we're going to pick up multiple inches of rain. So this is why we're concerned about the localized flooding, especially when we have impressive rainfall rates in an hourly period. That's going to be something that, of course, is not hard to flood across portions of South Florida. So we'll likely be watching for that to happen here over the next day or so. Meanwhile, we've got a frost advisory in effect across parts of the Northeast and interior New England. Notice these temperatures this morning, 30s, 40s, some 50s, but that means extra layer across this region for sure. If you're heading out and about, you'll still see some kind of mild temperatures across that region by later today. But notice how much warmer it is across the middle of the country. We've got places like Albuquerque and Denver near 90 or at 90, 105 for Phoenix. That region ending up above normal for today. West Coast, meanwhile, running below normal. Los Angeles running about 10 degrees below where they should be for this time of year. 78 degrees is what we're ending up with here as we end up into tomorrow. We'll see those mixed temperatures with the warmer air kind of filtering into the Midwest. And then we keep it fairly mild for September as we head into the weekend. 80s on tap for the Mid-Atlantic.
I mean, I heard you say mild. I heard you talk about the rain. But what's sticking out? Frost advisory?
I know,
I mean, I'm still hanging on to summer. I love fall.
You and me both. Notice we both are wearing our short sleeves.
Yeah.
I know. We've got a chilly morning for some, but it's kind of, it'll be mild by the afternoon. So still be able to peel off some of those layers.
Fall coming in hot. All right, yep. Angie, thanks so much.
We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.